So let's actually dive into a little bit more of hedging and how a farmer or rancher might actually use the futures options to hedge some of their commodity. And we're going to start off with the short futures hedge. Now, with the short futures hedge, you are going to use that for outputs. Whenever you are selling something, you're going to use the short. You're going to short the market whenever you're selling something. So let's say that you're selling a pen of cattle in 2 months with the cost of production of $164. Now, you always need to know your cost of production. How much is it costing you to produce this? That's an important figure to know, because without knowing how much it's costing you, how do you know what the forward price your commodity at? How do you know what is an acceptable price to try to lock in or to try and hedge? Now, because the cattle are perishable, the cash price is technically irrelevant in this case. So we're not going to worry about what the cash price is today, because these cattle are still growing and they must be sold in 2 months. We're not so much concerned about what the cash price is today, but we are concerned about what the futures price is today. So we see that the live cattle futures are being sold for that particular month for $170. Now, 2 months from now, so let's say that we're operating in April. 2 months from now is June. You're going to be selling these cattle in June, but it's still April. In April, you look at the June contract and you determine that it's $170. So you're looking into the future, 2 months in the future at the price, and the price is predicted to be, or it's estimated to be at $170 per hundredweight for that June contract. So, like I said, we're selling these cattle. Because you're selling them, you're going to take the short position. Why? Because you're going to try and protect yourself from falling prices. Remember that if you're going to be selling a commodity, the one thing you don't want the prices to do are fall. So you're trying to protect yourself from those falling prices. So think about that short futures option, or that short futures contract. If prices fall, you make money in the futures if you short the market. Remember, you're selling high, then you'll buy low. So you're going to make money if you short the market. So what if prices fall? Well, you make money in the futures, and that money that you make in the futures goes to offset the drop in the cash. So let's say that local cash prices and future prices decrease to $165. So what would our basis be if our cash price and our futures price are both $165? You got it. Our basis would be 0. It's even. So let's say that both cash prices and futures prices fall to $165. So we sell cattle at this price at the local auction barn. Remember, you're still selling cattle. You still have to actually sell that physical commodity. So you sell this physical commodity at the auction barn at this price of $160. Now, this is shown over here on this little graph right here. So you're going to buy... Sorry, my scribble got off. You're going to sell these cattle at the local auction barn. So you're selling them at market price of $165. So you sell them at $165. But also you have to buy back your futures contract. Remember, we need to offset our position in the futures market. We sold originally at $170. So we buy back these futures at $165. So we buy back our live cattle contract, and we sold it at $170. We buy it back at $165. So how much money did we make in the futures? Well, we had a $5 gain in the futures, plus we sold the cattle for $165. We have a net of $170 per hundredweight, minus any commissions. But we're not going to worry about the commissions in this particular example. So what happened here? Even though prices fell, we made money in the futures, and that money that we made in the futures went to offset the loss of the cash. Now, we said that cash prices decreased. We're not quite sure what they started off with, but we know that cash prices decreased. So we obviously lost a little bit of money in the cash, but we made up for that by having a gain in the future. Now, what if the opposite happens? What if prices actually increase? So let's go through that same example. We're going to be selling a pen of cattle in 2 months. Our cost of production is 164. So we're going to try and lock in a price or hedge a price to be above 164. Again, the cash price right now is irrelevant because these cattle are still growing. And because they are perishable, we're not so much worried about that cash price. But we're going to go sell these live. And again, we decide that we're going to hedge our commodity. And we sell a live cattle futures contract for $170. Again, we're going to take the short position. Why? Because we're trying to protect ourselves from falling prices. We need to protect ourselves from that falling price. So the local cash price is set. Now instead of cash prices falling, actually the local cash price rises to 130 or 173, and futures rise to 175. So given that particular information, what is our basis? Our basis is $2 under. So cash minus futures. So 173 minus the futures price of 175 was a negative $2 or $2 under. So our local cash price rises and our futures price rises. So we sell the cattle in the cash market at 173. So we sell in the local market at 173. But we have to buy back the futures contract at 175. Because the prices rose and we shorted the market, did we make or lose money in the futures? Well, we actually lost money in the futures. We sold at 170, bought back at 175. So we lost $5 in the futures. So we sell cattle at the cash market at the auction barn for 173. We take our $5 loss in the futures and we wind up walking out with a net of 168. So think about this. Your net price is 168 as compared to if you would have just waited for the cash price, or if you wouldn't have engaged in the futures, you would have sold them in the cash at 173. So why would you do it? Why would you hedge? Well, here's something you got to keep in mind about the futures market and hedging using the futures market. Hedging in the futures market is not meant to maximize profit. If you want to maximize profit, you need to start trying to outguess the market, which a lot of times doesn't work. It's very difficult to outguess the market. But instead, what hedging is meant to do is it's meant to minimize this price risk. It's trying to minimize that price risk. So we saw that prices fluctuated in this particular example by $3. Let's just say that the current cash price or the original cash price was 170. And we saw a increase in price of $3, but yet our net price was only a decrease of $2. So the fluctuation of $2 is less than the fluctuation of that $3. We're trying to minimize that price movement for our sake. So what we do whenever we go into hedge, that's why understanding this cost of production is so important. What we do as a hedger, whenever a person is looking to hedge a commodity, they're not trying to maximize their profit. They're trying to lock in a price. They're trying to minimize that price risk. So what they do is they look at their cost of production and they say, all right, our cost of production is 164. So I at least want to make a profit. So I need to at least try to hedge my prices for around 165 or 166, something to make a profit. If I can make over that, I'm happy. So we look at it then and we say, all right, well, we're going to try and hedge our prices for about 170. We're looking at the futures prices. We're going to try and hedge it for about that price. And as long as we make a profit, we're okay. Well, even in this example, our net is still 168. That's still above 164. We're still making $4 per hundredweight in profit in this example. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to lock in a profit in general. So compare it back to up here. Up here, the cash price fell to 165, which was getting dangerously close to our break-even price. But because we had locked in that price, we managed to stay well above the 165. Even down here, even though we could have gotten 173, we still locked in the price and still made a decent profit. Again, the futures market is not meant to necessarily maximize profit. It's meant to minimize this price risk and try to establish a price to earn a profit. But what you've got to do is you've got to know your cost of production to know what is a profitable amount.